President Trump has issued a stark ultimatum to Nigeria over the ongoing violence against Christians, and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has confirmed the Pentagon is actively preparing military operations in response to this, compiled by televangelist H.B. Morgan. A unified warning from the White House and Pentagon. The U.S. administration has escalated its rhetoric into what now appears to be an operational stance. President Trump, in a forceful social media post, directly accused the Nigerian government of failing to protect its Christian population from repeated attacks by Islamic extremist groups. He warned that unless Abuja takes immediate and decisive action, the United States will not only halt all aid and assistance but may also intervene militarily. Trump's words were unambiguous. If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria. I may very well go into that now. Disgraced country, guns are blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. Pentagon signals readiness. In a rare and direct public response, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth echoed the president's ultimatum, signaling that the Department of War is already preparing contingency plans. His reply, a crisp "yes sir," understood the seriousness with which the Pentagon is treating the Commander-in-Chief's directive. Hegseth elaborated further. The killing of innocent Christians in Nigeria and anywhere must end immediately. The Department of War is preparing for action. Either the Nigerian government protects Christians or we will kill the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. The statement leaves little doubt that the US military is moving beyond rhetorical condemnation and into a posture of readiness. With operational planning underway should the president order intervention. The broader context. The exchange between Trump and Hegseth comes against the backdrop of mounting international concern over sectarian violence in Nigeria, where extremist groups have repeatedly targeted Christian communities. The president's threat to cut off aid, coupled with the Pentagon's confirmation of military planning, marks a significant escalation in U.S. policy toward the West African nation. While previous administrations have condemned religious persecution abroad, the current White House has taken a far more aggressive stance, openly threatening direct military involvement if the Nigerian government fails to act. What this means going forward: the coordinated messaging from both the Oval Office and the Pentagon suggests that Washington is prepared to translate words into action. Whether this results in diplomatic pressure, suspension of aid, or actual military strikes will depend on Nigeria's response in the coming days. For now, the message is clear. The United States is no longer content with warnings alone. The protection of Christians in Nigeria has been elevated to a matter of U.S. national interest, with the Pentagon poised to act if ordered. Pentagon poised after Trump's warning. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, yes sir. The U.S. administration has escalated its stance on religious violence in Nigeria, with President Trump issuing a blunt ultimatum and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth confirming that the Pentagon is preparing military options. The coordinated messaging signals a shift from rhetoric to operational readiness, placing Nigeria's handling of extremist violence under unprecedented scrutiny. Trump ultimatum. In a forceful social media post, President Trump directly accused the Nigerian government of failing to protect its Christian population from repeated attacks by Islamic extremist groups. His warning was explicit. If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the United States of America, will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, gone a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. The president's words combined both economic and military threats, making clear that the United States of America and its patience has run out, making it clear that the United States of America has run out of patience. Pentagon's response. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth responded publicly and without hesitation. Yes, sir. He elaborated that the Department of War is already preparing contingency plans. The killing of innocent Christians in Nigeria and anywhere must end immediately. The Department of War is preparing for action. Wow. Either the Nigerian government protects Christians or we will kill the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. This rare direct acknowledgement from the Pentagon underscores that the White House directive is being translated into operational posture. Wow. US-Nigeria relations, a long partnership. The ultimatum comes against the backdrop of decades-long relationship between Washington, D.C. and Abuja. For more than 50 years, the United States and Nigeria have maintained a close security partnership rooted in Nigeria's role as Africa's most populous country and largest economy. The US has supported Nigeria through counter-terrorism training, intelligence sharing, and joint operations against extremist groups such as Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa. Historically, the US engagement has included military training and equipment transfers to strengthen Nigeria's armed forces, joint operations through regional coalitions like the Multinational Joint Task Force, economic and humanitarian aid often tied to governance and human rights benchmark. Despite this cooperation, tensions have periodically surfaced, particularly over human rights concerns and Nigeria's uneven record in protecting vulnerable communities. A potential turning point. Trump's warning and Hegseth's confirmation suggest a potential break from the traditional US approach to cautious partnership. While past administrations emphasized diplomacy and capacity building, the current White House is openly threatening direct intervention. If carried out, such action would mark a dramatic escalation in US policy toward Nigeria, shifting from support and partnership to unilateral military engagement. The Nigerian government now faces a stark choice: demonstrate immediate and credible protection of Christian communities or risk losing US aid and potentially facing American military force. What comes next? The coming weeks will determine whether this exchange remains a war of words or evolves into concrete action. Nigeria's response, whether through stronger domestic security measures or diplomatic engagement with Washington, will be pivotal. For now, the message from Washington is unmistakable. The protection of Christians in Nigeria has been elevated to a matter of U.S. national interest, and the Pentagon is poised to act if ordered. Nigeria's potential responses to the U.S. ultimatum range from diplomatic pushback to military recalibration, with each part carrying major consequences for its sovereignty, security, and international standing. Diplomatic response scenarios. Nigeria's first line of defense is likely to be a diplomatic engagement. Historically, Abuja has resisted external pressure while simultaneously seeking to preserve its strategic partnership with Washington. Possible moves include formal denial and rebuttal. Nigerian officials may publicly reject U.S. claims as they have in past disputes, insisting that the government is already combating extremist groups like Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa. Appeal to multilateral forums. Nigeria could raise the issue at the African Union or United Nations, framing U.S. threat as an infringement on sovereignty. Back channel negotiations. Quiet diplomacy may be pursued to reassure Washington of Nigeria's commitment to protecting Christians while avoiding direct confrontations. Military and security posture. If the U.S. threat escalates, Nigeria may adjust its military strategy in several ways. Increased domestic operations. Abuja could intensify counter-terrorism campaigns in the north, both to demonstrate resolve and to preempt U.S. intervention. Diversification of security partnerships. Nigeria may deepen ties with Russia, China, or regional African powers to counterbalance U.S. pressure, a strategy it has flirted with in the past. Defensive preparations. While unlikely to engage the U.S. military, Nigeria could reposition forces to signal readiness and deter any perception of weakness. Economic and aid considerations. President Trump's warning to cut off U.S. aid is significant. Nigeria is a major recipient of American assistance, particularly in health, humanitarian relief, and security cooperation. Losing this support would strain Nigeria's already fragile economy, undermine counter-terrorism capacity, which relies heavily on U.S. intelligence and equipment, push Nigeria to seek alternative funding sources, potentially from China's Belt and Road Initiative or Gulf states. Public opinion and domestic politics. The ultimatum may also reverberate inside Nigeria. Christian communities likely to welcome U.S. pressure as a protective measure. Muslim communities may view the threat as an attack on Nigeria's sovereignty and religious balance, fueling resentment. Political leadership. The government will face pressure to appear strong against foreign threats while also preventing escalation. Forward-looking analysis. The U.S. ultimatum has created a high-stakes diplomatic standoff. Nigeria's most probable course is to intensify domestic counter-terrorism efforts while engaging in quiet diplomacy to avoid aid suspension and military confrontation. However, if Washington perceives these steps as insufficient, the risk of unilateral U.S. action remains at large. In short, Nigeria must walk a tightrope, demonstrating sovereignty and capability while preventing a rupture with its most powerful security partner, the U.S. The CCWN TV network website is exclusively live on Patreon. via patreon.com/CCWN TV Network INTL, patreon.com/CCWN TV Network INTL, courtesy of Christian Church World News, CCWN Television Network Digital Library.